Hello. In this video, I will discuss the heart diagram and go over the heart model. The heart diagram you'll find on page 63 in your lab manual. And for the exam, you'll have to know the parts of the heart. And for the lab exam, you'll have to know the parts of the heart and their basic function. Okay, first off, a little overview of this heart, or this heart diagram, and the heart in general. This is the right side. So this diagram is a heart that you're looking at from in front. So this is the person's right side. So this is the right side of the heart, and this is the left side of the heart. And generally, well, the right side has low oxygen blood, and the left side deals with high oxygen blood, or oxygenated blood. Another thing you need to know is veins. They take blood from body to heart. And arteries, they move blood to body from heart. So again, veins from body to heart. That looks terrible. And arteries to body from heart. So, and generally the veins, well, we'll get to that in a second. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work through the heart, and we're going to label all this diagram. I'm going to kind of go in the order of blood flow. And so in this process, we'll kind of also describe how the heart works. So the first thing that I should label is number 1 and 6. So we're going to start with blood coming into the heart from the body. Number 1 is called the superior. I start off bad already. Luckily I have erasable pens. Superior vena cava, or vena cava. That should be an A, not cave. Superior vena cava. This is the V. And number 6 is the inferior vena cava. That's number 6. And as these arrows show, they bring blood into the heart from the body. These are the main veins from the body. This comes from the upper portion of the body, and the inferior vein comes from the bottom portion of the body. So blood that is low in oxygen, because it just came from the body and all the oxygen was used up, is coming to the heart so it can get reoxygenated and pumped back to the body. So this is the superior and inferior vena cava. On this model, these main veins come in from the back side. So this is how it is arranged in the diagram here. There is the inferior vena cava, and this is the superior vena cava. And generally veins are shown in blue and arteries are shown in red. Okay, so once blood flows into the heart, it is received in this chamber here. And this chamber here is called the right atrium. It's number 5. Right atrium. Now, atrium, there are 2 atriums, so actually the plural of atrium is atria. So atria are receiving chambers. And this receives blood from the body, and its blood is low in oxygen. And if you open up this model here, you will notice that, well, it's not a very big chamber. and it's not extremely muscular. There are muscles in it, of course, but it's not very, very muscular. It's thin-walled and not very muscular. So it's this portion here of this model. That is the right atrium. So blood will flow into the right atrium from the body. So it comes up into there and down from up here to this hole into this chamber here, the right atrium. That's matched up with that. Okay, so the blood flows in there, and then there's a little bit of a pumping action that occurs, and it pushes the blood through this valve here, number 7, and this is called the tricuspid valve. Tricuspid valve. And this is the valve between the right atrium and this right ventricle. The blood will flow from the right atrium into this chamber here, which is the right ventricle. Now, tricuspid valve is called tricuspid because it has 3 flaps. Kind of looks like this. So there's an opening here. And these flaps, well, when the blood is flowing into this chamber, it can go into here. But when this chamber, the right ventricle, when it contracts and pumps blood out of it, this valve will close. These three cusps will flap back and close. Now, ventricles pump blood away from the body. So ventricles are the pumping chambers. And the chamber is more muscular than the atrium. So in this model, you can see here is the tricuspid valve, and this is the right ventricle. And the majority of this right ventricle is on this front half that's fallen off. So that's the right, it hadn't fallen off, I took it off, but that's the right ventricle. You can look, you're looking down into it right there. Now these things here on the valve are strings or membranes that anchor the valve to the walls of this ventricle. Because when this ventricle pumps, this valve will be force shut with extreme force, and if there wasn't pulled down, it would flap back and blood would flow back into the atrium, which is not what we want. So we want the blood to stay and pump in the correct direction out this way and not back into the atrium. So there are strings, that are your heartstrings, you might have heard of your heartstrings, that hold the valves from flowing back, pumping back into the atrium. Okay, so a review. We have blood coming in from the body, either the superior vena cava from the head, torso, upper torso, or the inferior vena cava from below the chest. It enters the right atrium, which is a receiving chamber with weak pumping capabilities, but it does pump and contract and push the blood into the right ventricle through the tricuspid valve. When the right ventricle contracts, it will force the blood into this vessel here. It first goes through a valve labeled number 4, which is called the pulmonary valve. The pulmonary valve. Now, pulmonary, you might know, stands or is a word that refers to the lungs. So the right ventricle pumps blood to lungs. And this is low oxygenated blood. We're on the right side. This is low oxygen. So we're going to pump blood through the pulmonary valve, which is this one here, into this vessel here, which is labeled number 16, which is the pulmonary trunk. The pulmonary trunk, kind of like the trunk of a tree. Now the trunk of the tree here is going to branch. One side is going to go to the left lung, and the other side is going to go to the left or the right lung. And so here is the left side. It's going to the left lung. This is called the left pulmonary arteries. Now remember, arteries go to the body from the heart. So the lungs are part of the body, so these vessels are taking blood away from the heart to body, and this is the left pulmonary arteries. And over here, number 2, these are the right pulmonary arteries, and I'll just label them RP arteries. So it will split and go both ways. Now in our handy dandy model here, there's the right ventricle, this side here. The blood will be, this ventricle will contract, it's muscular, and will push the blood into this pulmonary trunk. Now if we go into the back, we can see that it splits. One side goes that way and that way. And it's on the inside, this is the pulmonary valve. So it'll come out of the chamber, this ventricle will contract, squeeze really hard, these strings will hold this valve shut, so the blood has to go into this chamber, into the pulmonary trunk, and into the left and right pulmonary arteries. Now usually arteries carry oxygenated blood, but close to the heart, the arteries that take blood to the lungs is low in oxygen. Okay, so we have the pulmonary valve, and then the pulmonary arteries and pulmonary trunk. Okay, now, we need to come, so in the lungs, the blood is going to pick up oxygen. And we need to return that oxygenated blood to the heart, because it needs to be pumped to the body. And this is where these vessels come in. These come from the lungs, and there's a pair on the right side and a pair on the left side, and these are the pulmonary veins. And so this is the left pulmonary vein. And I'm just going to abbreviate pulmonary with pulm. Now veins come from the body to the heart. And I'm writing in red now because this ink, or this blood has oxygen in it. It comes from the lungs. So there's the left pulmonary vein, and this is the right pulmonary veins. There's a pair of them. The right pulmonary veins and the left pulmonary veins. And so they're bringing oxygenated blood from the lungs to the heart. Okay, now remember, what is a chamber that receives blood called? It's called an atrium. And so this number 13, the number there, remember, see there are 4 veins coming from the lungs, 2 from each side. Number 13 here is called the left atrium. It's on the left side, and it's an atrium. And it receives blood from the lungs, and it's oxygenated blood. Now there's a little bit of pumping capability on the atrium. So actually when the right atrium contracts, the left atrium contracts as well. And it will pump blood into this largest of the chambers, which is the left ventricle. Left ventricle. So, on our model here, now most of this stuff happens in the back. So I'm going to flip it over. And so this is now the left side here, and this is the right side. And you'll notice that there are veins coming from the lungs from each side, and the left ventricle is just right here behind it. And so on the front, there's a little bit of the ventricle on this side, or sorry, atrium. This is the left atrium. There's a little bit of the atrium right here, but it's mostly to the back in that part here. So you can see the blood coming in there and there from the lungs. It's going to be stored briefly in this atrium. The top part contracts and pumps the blood into the ventricles. Now this is the left ventricle. Notice how very thick this muscle wall is compared to the right ventricle. This muscle wall is so thick because this chamber, the left ventricle, has to pump blood to the entire body, all the capillaries of the body. So it pumps with extreme force. This valve here, which is labeled number 11, is called the mitral or the bicuspid. So you can't read it. It's mitral or the bicuspid valve. Mitral, and that's needs to be a little bit more neat. So you can read mitral or bicuspid, C-U-S-P-I-D. Bicuspid. This one is called the bicuspid valve because it's essentially just cut in half like this, 2 flaps instead of 3. Now this is a little bit like a parachute. These strings, just like on the tricuspid valve, the mitral valve, when this ventricle contracts, the blood should not go back into the lungs because it has oxygen. It needs to go to the body. So this contracts with tremendous force, and like parachute strings, they hold the cusps of the valve from going back. So they hold them like this. The blood is forced into the aorta here, which we'll talk about in a sec. So it does not backflow into this because these strings hold the bicuspid valve closed in this configuration instead of like this, where blood would come back through. Okay, so that's the mitral or the bicuspid valve. We talked about the left ventricle. Now what separates the 2 chambers? Well, this is called the septum. Septum. S-E-P-T-U-M. And the septum essentially just is a divider. And remember in the amphibians, there wasn't a complete division here. They had a 3-chambered heart, and the right and the left ventricle are essentially just one ventricle. So we have a 4-chamber heart, so the low oxygen blood doesn't mix with the high oxygen blood and reduce efficiency. Okay, so when the left ventricle contracts, it forces blood at tremendous pressure through this valve here into the aorta, which is kind of behind the pulmonary trunk. So this is the aorta behind the pulmonary trunk, and this is called the aortic valve. Now there are no strings on the pulmonary valve and the aortic valve because the aorta and the pulmonary trunk do not contract, so blood would never be under pressure to go the other way. So it's just it's a pretty decent valve, but it's not reinforced with strings to hold it from backflowing because these vessels don't pump. So the aortic valve keeps blood from backflowing into the left ventricle. And so the left ventricle pumps with tremendous force the blood out into the aorta, or the aortic arch. This is called the aortic arch, and actually this is the aorta, but there's not a lot of space right here, but you have heard of the aorta. A-O-R-T-A. Aorta. Or this is actually the aortic arch, this first part. Okay, now, the bulk of the aorta turns around and goes down to the lower part of the body. But the upper part of the body gets some major vessels, these three. Now before I get there, let me show you on the model the aorta. So this is the aortic valve here, behind the pulmonary trunk and the pulmonary valve. This is the aortic valve there. This ventricle, the left ventricle, contracts. Tremendous pressure pumps it into this aortic arch. Most of it comes down behind the body, or the heart, and will go toward the lower part of the body. But these three vessels up here at the top take blood to the upper part of the body. So what are these called? This first one here on the right side, or on our left side, but on the right side, this is called the brachiocephalic artery. Now remember, arteries carry oxygenated blood generally away from the heart, or just blood away from the heart. So brachiocephalic artery. Brachio means arm, and cephalic means head. So this one goes into the right arm, and then the head part, and actually above this it branches off. There's a branch. And this part of the branch is called the right carotid. I should label that here. Right carotid. And this is the right right subclavian. Something I forgot. Subclavian artery. Now let's see. If you miss spellings on these things, they are on page 57, the spellings of all these arteries and things. So if you can't read this because I'm writing sloppy. So the brachiocephalic branches just a little bit above this into the right carotid and the right subclavian. Now the left carotid, which goes into the head, these carotid arteries go into the head. The left carotid is this one here in the middle. Left carotid artery. And 18 is the left subclavian artery. Now, think of your, that's not I left out the C. Can't read it anyway. The left subclavian. So think about your clavicle. So this goes into your shoulder and left arm. This part here, the left subclavian artery. All right. So this heart is about life size. Your heart is about the size of your fist, and it is directly under your sternum. I was going to show you, but no, you can't see. It's directly under your sternum, and yeah, you have right side and left side. And if you were to look down at it from your head, it would look something like this. This is the superior vena cava. Drains blood from the upper part of the body. This is the inferior vena cava. And the blood will come in here into the right atrium. This little chamber here. The atrium, the right atrium contracts and pumps blood into the right ventricle. The right ventricle contracts and pumps blood into the pulmonary trunk. And that breaks off into the pulmonary arteries, the left and right pulmonary arteries. Now, the blood doesn't backflow into the atrium because of the tricuspid valve. Now, in the lungs, the right side and the left, or so it's here, yeah, the right side from this view, and the left side, the blood will pick up oxygen and it'll flow back through two arteries. Nope, sorry, veins. Here they get confusing because veins usually are deoxygenated, but coming from the lungs, the veins have oxygen. So we have the left, this is the right side, and the left pulmonary veins that bring the blood into the left atrium, which is right behind here, the left atrium. And that's that top part there. So it's kind of behind the left atrium. It's kind of behind the heart. The atrium will contract a little bit and bring blood into the left ventricle. And then this left ventricle, the most muscular of all, will contract with tremendous force. The bicuspid valve, or the mitral valve, holds the blood from going back into the lungs, but sends the blood in through the aortic valve into the aortic arch. And this is here from looking down. This will go up into your right side of your head and your right arm. So this is the brachiocephalic artery, and it branches into the right carotid and the right subclavian. So the right carotid comes up into your right side, and the right subclavian goes under your shoulder and arm. This here in the middle is the left carotid artery, goes up into the left side of your head, and this is the left subclavian artery. And that's that. And then, of course, they'll go into all the capillaries. The blood will go into capillaries, and all the tissues lose oxygen, and then come back. So, let me know if you have any questions. I'll be willing to answer any and all of them. Again, on your dissection page, you need to be able to identify the parts on the pig and the human heart. Oh, that reminds me. The pig has a slight difference in arrangement of the veins coming, or the arteries coming out of the heart here. And this is a diagram from your book without labels. This is the pulmonary trunk here in front, and the aortic arch is kind of hidden back down there. Coming out of the aortic arch is the brachiocephalic artery. So there is a brachiocephalic artery. But in the pig, it branches into three things. Both carotid arteries, both the left and the right, come out of this brachiocephalic artery. Now in people, the left carotid artery comes out of the middle of the aortic arch and goes directly into here. But in the pig, it's connected here. And this part is called the bicarotid, which means two carotid arteries. This small, brief, little bit of a portion here is called the bicarotid artery. And then it's the right and the left side arteries, carotid arteries, up into the head. And this is the right subclavian artery. And this here is the left subclavian. And I believe those are labeled in your textbook. But just be aware of that difference. In people, there are three arteries that come out of the top of the aortic arch. 3. And in pigs, there's just 2. This one and this one, because this one branches off of this one higher up. All right, that's all. Thanks for your attention.